Hello, everyone. Welcome to the General Study Abroad Pre-Departure Orientation. My name is Jennifer Summerhays, and I'm the Director of the Office of Study Abroad. I'm thrilled to be with you, and I'm so excited about this time we're going to be spending together. There are about 271 students participating on this webinar, along with several faculty who will be taking students on Maymesters coming next month. So I first want to congratulate you on your decision to study abroad. It's a great decision, and our goal with this session is to really try to set you up for success. This is a general pre-departure orientation. I just want to emphasize that. We're going to try to move efficiently through a lot of information that we think is important for you. For those of you, well, actually all of you are going to have an opportunity to have pre-departure orientations that are very specific to your programs. So I just want to make sure that you know that. We also have a lot of people on this webinar who are excited to share content and information with you. And so I'm going to have my team, the Study Abroad office, introduce themselves first. And then I'd like to kind of set up your expectations for this webinar, and then we'll get going. So again, my name is Jennifer Summerhays. I'm the Director of the Office of Study Abroad. Tammy.
Hello, I am Tammy Valeri, and I am the Budget and Billing Coordinator in the Study Abroad office and the Maymester Program Manager.
Great. Emma.
Yep, I'm Emma Mead. I am an Assistant Director of Study Abroad. I manage our programs in Spain, South America, France, and Ireland. So if you don't know me, now you do, but I've talked to a lot of you over the past couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to getting to know you and hoping that everyone has a fabulous time abroad.
Piper.
Hi, I'm Piper Sullivan, and I'm the Assistant Director of Study Abroad, and I manage programs in the UK, throughout Asia, and the environmental studies programs.
Great. And Jackie.
Hi, I'm Jackie Shartner. I'm the Office Coordinator in Study Abroad, and I manage the application portal.
Fantastic. So that's the Study Abroad team, and we have a whole host of fantastic folks on with us who will introduce themselves later when they take part in the presentation. They're represented from Counseling Services, the DEI office, Student Wellness Center, and so I'm just really honored and thankful to our colleagues who are joining in. So thank you. I wanted also now just to set up some expectations for this webinar. I heard that there's some anxiety around how long it's going to be. We originally set it for an hour and decided to extend it to an hour and a half just because we have a lot of content. And we also have a unique situation. We're going to set it up as part 1 and part 2. Part 1 will involve all students and faculty, so those Maymester, semester, and year-long students. And then we'll have a halftime Q&A. And our Maymester students and faculty should feel free to leave if you like, or you can stay on and hang out with us a little longer. And we'll go into part 2, which will be for semester and academic year study abroad students, and we'll have a Q&A at the end. You should all feel free to put your questions and comments in the chat, and we have someone who's looking at those and will help us in an organized way to answer those. So we're going to try to, again, move quickly. You can see the topics that we're going to address. And so feel free to ask your questions or put them in the chat as we go. Oh, what's happening here? Getting ahead of ourselves. There we go. So I'm gonna make this short and sweet, but this is my very favorite all-time topic to share with you and to talk about, which is success abroad and what it means to be abroad and to really engage with the destination and the place and the space that you've chosen. And again, this is, you may say, well, this is an old person talking, and that's fine if you want to say that. But I've traveled to a lot of places in the world and lived in really interesting corners of the world, and met a lot of people, learned languages. And these are 4 things that kind of takeaways in looking and reflecting on my personal experience and my professional experience that have really helped me a lot. So intentional versus accidental. So what I want to just food for thought, be intentional about the way you go abroad, the way you walk in the world. Ask yourself, why am I actually really going abroad? And I know that, that's kind of a philosophical question, but it is. I hope that all of us think about why we're going abroad, how we want to interact with people on the ground, how we want to be perceived and not perceived. And I guess accidental, we can make a lot of mistakes, cultural mistakes, and we all will make mistakes. So study abroad is full of kind of tripping and getting up again. But we can avoid cultural accidents and miscues if we think about the way we want to be before we go abroad. Empty versus full. So this is my favorite point, and I have lots of examples that I won't share with you from my own life, but I've gone abroad before, and I've been full of my own ideas, full of my own perceptions, and full of my own expectations of what I really want to get out of this experience. And it usually doesn't go very well because I'm too full. I don't have enough space in me to allow the experience to happen to me. And so to the extent that, and this is just an invitation to think about these things, but to the extent that we can sort of leave our cultural selves behind, to keep space open, to learn new things, to invite new people into our circles, to try new foods, to experiment new smells and flavors, to listen more than we talk. And so I think emptiness, strangely, is often more productive abroad than going away full of ourselves and full of our preconceived notions and full of expectations. Let surprises happen. The third is create versus consume. And so I think it's often a mistake that we all make when we plan for an experience and we go abroad. And we expect the experience, we expect to consume the experience. I want this, this, and this. And it usually doesn't come on a plate. It usually doesn't come served up in the way that we expect it. And so I guess I just want to inspire in you the importance of creation. We can also be creators of our experience. We can think about what we want, but also what we want to give. What we want to contribute to our local community where we are. And so consider being a creator versus a consumer in this study abroad endeavor. And the final one is fluid versus frustrated. And I, again, have learned the hard way, but it's easy to get frustrated abroad. Things are different. Language is barriers sometimes. People do things backwards. The lines are too long, or the lines are too crowded, or whatever, what have you. And frustration will be a natural part of the study abroad experience. Part of why we go abroad, or at least why I like to go abroad, is to feel slightly uncomfortable, to push myself. And so I think the importance of just staying fluid in that moment, and it's easy to say, harder to do, but to not take ourselves too seriously, and to allow the culture to happen on us, and figure out how to navigate within it rather than being frustrated by expectations that aren't being met. So those are my director quick tips. Take them or leave them. If you have questions, I'd love to talk to you more. My door's open to hear your stories and needs, and I'd be happy to share more. We're going to segue into the health and wellness abroad portion of our webinar. Very important piece of this story, important resources that our colleagues are going to share with you now.
So great tips, Jennifer. Is it okay if the student service areas go ahead?
Perfect.
Great, great. So I'm Neil Lipsitz. I'm Associate Dean for Student Wellbeing, and I'm also Director of Student Accessibility Services. And we're going to hear from Joy Lagruda, who is from Student Wellness Education. We're going to hear from two Kelseys, Kelsey DeVoe, our Director of Health Services, and Kelsey Moran, who is with our Counseling and Psychological Services Office. I'll just quickly say, from the perspective of Student Accessibility Services, that if you already receive accommodations and you're going abroad through a program that's sponsored by Holy Cross, your accommodations should hold up. You know, that should be something that you can speak with Study Abroad about before you go, so that you know who to speak with once you get there and how to make those accommodations happen. If you're going with a program that's not sponsored for some reason, I guess, by Holy Cross, you know, there's kind of a 50% chance that you would be qualified to receive those accommodations. And again, you know, work with the Office of Study Abroad. So either way, you know, if you have accommodations, I would highly recommend that you check in with Study Abroad and find out, you know, who the contacts are over there and how they administer their accommodations. If you don't have accommodations and think you'd like to sign up for those, which is always the case at any time while you're at Holy Cross, please visit our website, Student Accessibility Services. At the documentation guidelines link, you will be able to get onto our Accommodate portal and make a request, upload your documentation, and we'll take it from there. So you can always make an initial request or make supplemental requests at any time. I'm going to turn it over to Joy Lagruda at this point.
Hi, everyone. Excuse me. My name is Joy Lagruda. I'm the Assistant Director of Student Wellness Education. If I haven't met you before, it's great to see you all here. And I work with students here at Holy Cross on a lot of different topics related to helping you all maintain your best level of wellness as possible while you're in college. But tonight I thought that since we all are on a short amount of time, that I would focus on what I think is one of the most important things regarding your wellness as you travel to a foreign country, and that is thinking about your use of alcohol and other substances while you are traveling abroad. One thing to keep in mind is that as you're traveling to another country, you're going to find that the legal age to drink is most likely is lower than 21. A lot of other countries, it's 18. And so when you arrive at your destination, certainly keeping in mind that you're in a place where drinking is legal, and really thinking about how you want to proceed with that. And if you opt to drink alcohol in the country that you're visiting, to really just focus on your safety and responsibility, which are the two things that I try to have open and honest conversations about here at Holy Cross, but certainly as you're traveling to a country where you might have more open and free opportunities to use alcohol. Your safety, keeping in mind that alcohol does impair your judgment. And sometimes when you're in a foreign country, you might find yourself in situations where you could be more vulnerable. So always sticking together with friends, knowing where you're going, who you're going with, not accepting drinks from strangers, or going to places that alcohol might be served where you're not certain where you're going. Those are just some general tips around safety. And then another thing I wanted to talk about was the laws. So even if the drinking age in the country that you're visiting is 18, it's important to keep in mind that with alcohol consumption, there come a lot of other laws that you might want to keep in mind, and maybe do a little research about, you know, what the laws are in the country that you're visiting. For example, like public intoxication or open containers in public. Those are all things that you will want to avoid if it's against the law in the country that you're visiting. So I recommend just, you know, understanding what the laws are in the country that you're visiting before you participate in any sort of drinking. And then another thing I wanted to mention was just culturally, obviously, if you're visiting Italy and you want to participate in having some wine, or Ireland, you want to drink a Guinness, those are all parts of the culture. But I would, you know, really look into like, what are the cultural habits that the other people in the country observe, and trying to, you know, recognize that in our country and other countries, people use alcohol in different ways. And if you opt to drink or participate, to really kind of think about the culture of that country. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, I know we're short on time, is substance use other than alcohol. And it's my advice to avoid the use of any other substances. Here in the US, I know that our cannabis laws have gotten a little bit more liberal, with certain states allowing legalization. But in other countries, cannabis laws are typically not as liberal. And it's really important that you obey the law in the country that you're visiting. And in particular, cannabis, even though it's legal here in some states, it's federally still illegal. And when you're traveling abroad, you're dealing with offices like immigration, customs, you're traveling on an air travel, and those are all places that are regulated by our federal government. So you will want to make sure that you're not engaging in any substance use that could potentially be illegal. And then last but not least, the resources. If at any point in time you want to connect with the wellness office here at Holy Cross while you're abroad, I'm just an email away. We could Zoom, we could chat anytime if I could be of any help to you at all while you're traveling. I will pass it off to one of the Kelseys.
Thank you, Joy.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelsey DeVoe. I'm the Director of Health Services, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some things you should think about before traveling and while you're abroad related to sort of the medical side of things. I will put some, once I'm done chatting, I'll put some links in the chat for everyone. The CDC has a really great travel page, and you can select the country that you're going to, and it has all of the current health risks in the area, any required or recommended vaccines, and it's a good place to start when you are going abroad. Another thing before traveling that I really recommend is to make an appointment with your primary care provider or with health services. And at this appointment, plan to talk about where you're going, talk through the sort of health warnings and vaccinations, if there's any, and then also to just talk about your health conditions, make sure that you have everything, under control and well treated to reduce your risk of getting sick while you're gone or having any issues related to any of your chronic health conditions. If you take medication, you want to make sure you ask for a supply that will last you the entire time. It's illegal to mail prescription drugs, so that should not be your plan. You should make sure that you have enough with you, and then also have review the restrictions in your host country, as some medications are illegal in other countries that are prescribed here. And that will be one of the links I share with you. The CDC has a list of restricted medications by country. All prescriptions carried internationally should have your name, the name of the medication, the dosage, the quantity prescribed, and it would be really helpful, and I highly recommend doing this, to have a letter explaining from your doctor the diagnosis, the treatment, and even translating it into local languages might be helpful, and in some cases even required. You can pack that copy of the letter with the medications in your carry-on baggage. Would not recommend checking your medication just in case anything happens to your bag. Some destinations require disclosure of prescription medications when you're going through customs, so that having that letter is just a helpful backup. And you really don't want to have to worry about purchasing medication while you're abroad. Many countries struggle with counterfeit drugs, so you may think you're buying one thing and it's actually something else very dangerous. So really avoiding purchasing drugs. There are some countries where you can buy things sort of over the counter that here you need a prescription for. And a lot of these medications are counterfeit and can be very dangerous. So having what you need is really important. Bring a travel kit. One of the links I'll provide is the CDC's recommendation for what to put in your travel kit. Things like Band-Aids, a topical antibiotic cream, hand sanitizer, and then any over-the-counter medications that you might not be able to get where you are, like Benadryl, Tylenol, Advil, cough medicine. If you have prescriptions or chronic health conditions, or allergies, consider a medic alert bracelet that has the information on it. And making sure that if you have any of those chronic health conditions, consider, along with the prescription letter, having copies of your health insurance card, your vaccinations, maybe a card with the chronic illnesses, medications taken, allergies, and consider also having that translated into your host country's language. I highly recommend that you plan for the unexpected. If you have a history of asthma, make sure you have, a full rescue inhaler. If you have food allergies or medicine allergies, make sure you have 2 EpiPens with you and carry one with you at all times. Know where, the U.S. Embassy or consulate is located and save that number in your phone for 24/7 emergency assistance. Know your study abroad program contacts if you're not feeling well. And the CDC sites that I'll share with you have suggested clinics that are listed, and they have been indicated as clinics that provide healthcare to travelers. So knowing those resources before you go, so you're not sick and trying to figure out where to go, is super important. Health Services is not able to provide you with medical care while you're out of the country, just due to our licensing restrictions. But as Joy mentioned, we can help guide you, or provide any support. So definitely check in with us before. If you're not able to get in with your primary care provider, feel free to reach out via phone or email while you're there if you have questions. And when you return, if you are sick, always let the provider you're seeing know that you recently traveled, as this may guide their diagnosis based on potential exposures in your area. That was a lot. I will drop those CDC links in the chat while Kelsey is doing her part. And if anyone has any, further medical questions, definitely feel free to make an appointment with us in Health Services.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kelsey Moran. I use she and they pronouns. I'm a staff psychologist and also the coordinator of our LGBTQI+ psychological services in Counseling and Psychological Services Office, formerly known as the Counseling Center, which we are working on trying to be consistent with. I just put in the chat, I think it went through this time, some resources and just a guide that we have together that we send whenever working with international students who are coming here, and also relating to experiences that y'all may have if you're studying away or abroad. So feel free to look through that on your own time. I'm not going to read through it or go through it point by point or anything, but just a couple of things to highlight. In terms of the experience and kind of setting expectations, being able to just be realistic about those expectations. This is something that comes up a lot when we're talking to students, either if they're abroad and they're reaching out to us to check in on something, or once they've come back from being abroad, of just being able to be really realistic about what your expectations are for that experience. That it probably is not going to be, it hopefully will be an amazing experience, but it's probably not going to be the experience that, suddenly cures you of your anxiety that you've had your whole life. So just being able to be really realistic about, expecting that there might be some ups and downs. Culture shock is a real thing that you may experience, even if you're studying away and you're going to be domestic. Like there's still a different culture in different, states and regions and areas of our country. So just being mindful of that and being aware that that's something that you might experience, maybe not, but that you may experience that at some point. So trying to fold that into the expectations that you have so that it maybe doesn't feel, or hopefully anyway, won't feel as like jarring and upsetting or like there's something going wrong. Because it's such a normal thing to experience culture shock and to just, feel homesick or feel overwhelmed and things that folks have talked a little bit about already, but really just wanting to be kind of check in with yourself on what you may need to do to take care of yourself and what that might look like. The handout that I shared in the chat has a few suggestions for different things to try to help yourself feel more immersed in wherever it is that you're going to be, trying to feel more connected to people, because that tends to help us feel less overwhelmed and homesick and stressed and all those things. But also being able to find ways, and this is something that I would say to maybe brainstorm on sooner than later, but if there are certain things that bring you comfort, or something that you can bring with you that'll remind you of home, being able to, pack some things maybe that aren't necessarily practical, but that are sentimental and are gonna just help you feel a little more at ease if you're feeling homesick. So different things to kind of keep in mind with that. In terms of being able to connect with services. So the short answer is that if you are already connected to services, whether that's through our office or you have a therapist or a psychiatrist or someone at home, now's a good time to be kind of game planning with them about what that might look like and what supports you may need while you're abroad. Coming up with some kind of a game plan, and whether that's figuring out, Kelsey kind of mentioned before, like medications and having that all squared away, or knowing what resources for therapy you're going to access while you're away. Now's a really good time to be doing that. And if you don't have a provider that you're connected to, I think it tends to be a good idea. This is kind of a, planning for the worst scenario, but just being able to identify the person that you're going to reach out to if you do need support. And whether that's someone, at the home institution, either here or there, and figuring out local resources. And if you're going to maybe a country that doesn't really have like system to support mental health, being able to utilize I forget what it's called, but the International SOS, which I think is on another slides, and that's not something that I'm super familiar with, so I'll leave that for someone else to talk about. But just being able to have access to and have jotted down somewhere in a note in your phone or in an email that you send to yourself, or something where if I hit a point where just like I'm having a really series of really bad days and I need to talk to someone, who is that person going to be? So when we're not doing our best, we tend to not be best able to navigate systems and figure out how many clicks through on this website do I need to go through before I find the person that I can ask this question or connect with someone for support. So doing that ahead of time for yourself can be really helpful. And in terms of our office, similar to what Kelsey had said about health services, so we're not able, for various ethical and licensing reasons, to provide ongoing care for anyone while they're away or abroad. So that includes domestic folks. If you're going to be in the country, as long as you're outside of Massachusetts, we won't be able to provide ongoing care. What we do have available through our office is the ability to consult with you. So we have our urgent care hours that are at 10 and 3. Obviously, our time, how that may translate depending on where you are in the world, may not be quite so available, but we meet with students who are abroad or studying away pretty regularly through urgent care, or just to consult and have a better idea, if you're trying to figure out what next steps are, because you know that you need to access care, but you're not sure how to do that. Or you just want someone to kind of talk through to make sure that you're looking for the right kind of support in terms of what you're, searching for wherever it is that you are. Being able to reach out to our office, we are certainly available to help you with that process. Again, it's not for ongoing care, but to be able to help kind of problem solve and figure out next steps and things like that. We are absolutely available for that. Something that I think, if you have ignored everything that I've said so far, and you can remember one thing, we would so much rather that you reach out and connect with us, and then we'll be able to direct you to, we really can't help with that, but this is someone who can, or this is the person that you should talk to, or let's Google that together and figure out what your school offers. We would rather you reach out than I don't know, have a hesitating, I'm not sure if there'll be the right spot to hang out or to reach out to, so I'm just not going to, and I'll figure it out on my own. Always feel like you can reach out to us. We want to be able to help, and we'll help you figure out where to connect to if we're not the right person or not the right office. But feel free to reach out in whatever way feels helpful for you.
Great. I think we're all set, Jennifer. Should we take some questions or before we take our leave, or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, we can take a few questions if there are some questions in the chat regarding wellness, health and wellness. Jackie, maybe if there
are no questions in the chat at the moment.
You did an incredible job, everyone. They may come later in the webinar, and so we can we'll collate those and share them with you, and then we can share answers out with the participants. Would that work?
That's great. Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Great.
Best wishes, everyone. Good seeing
you. Thank you. So moving into kind of piggyback on what Kelsey said about health and wellness, our students and faculty and staff are very lucky at Holy Cross. We have what is called the International SOS, ISOS insurance coverage. And our students are covered in the Scholastic Traveler Program. It's a very comprehensive coverage that includes health and wellness, including counseling, mental health counseling appointments as well. One thing that I love about the International SOS is that they have an online portal packed with medical and travel advice to help you prepare for your study abroad experience. And so if you know that you have a certain medication need or a particular need, you can already start to liaise and talk with International SOS, and they can help you with pre-departure. The important thing about International SOS for students is that there's an app, an ISOS app, and everyone in their pre-departure orientation related to their program specific pre-departure program, we will help you download that app and have it ready to go so that you know how to access help while you're abroad. The mobile app gives you access to services and alerts while you're abroad. There are also 26 assistance centers worldwide, staffed with doctors and experts, so you're definitely not alone. We also, the staff in the Study Abroad office, we work very closely with International SOS in any event that our students have, or staff or faculty abroad have needs, and we work very closely with them to make sure that you get what you need. In many cases, if you have an event that is a non-emergency, it's best if you as a student reach out, and we can go over all this in our pre-departure program specific orientations, but if you reach out, set up an appointment, ISOS can guarantee payment usually before you ever have to pay out of pocket. There are, from time to time, you will have to pay out of pocket, and ISOS reimburses in almost every case, students and families. So again, those specifics we can go into great detail with, and I'm happy to work with each of you to better understand how to do that. And also the assistant directors in the Office of Study Abroad, everyone has their portfolios of programs and can meet with you specifically and talk you through that. You should know too that International SOS has a very extensive network of qualified, vetted, and certified health providers. And so you won't be required to, once you get in country, whether you're going to Italy or Australia or to Morocco, you won't need to find help, so to speak. We have vetted sources, service providers, and we can connect you to them. And ISOS really helps us do that for you. So I just want to put everyone at ease that you won't have to find your own doctor abroad necessarily. We have clinics that can help you do that, and resources. Let me see if there's anything else that I want to talk about right now. The prescriptions, all the advice that was given about prescriptions, medications, eyeglasses, contact lenses, you should be thinking about that, what you might need before you go. I won't repeat what was said. Everything that was said was absolutely correct. But I guess generally, I just want you to know that you have very fantastic coverage while you're abroad. In fact, in the past, I've had parents ask if they could keep the coverage once they came back to the United States because it was so good. And no, you can't, but you can enjoy it while you're abroad. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm just gonna, just for my Maymester students, they did not receive instructions regarding the specifics of the app in their site-specific or pre-departure meetings. I actually thought we were maybe going to go over that a little bit during this meeting, but maybe just generally, Piper, you could maybe talk about it. They did get instructions that were attached to this webinar, and they were instructed to download the app ahead of time. But just that in general, the check-in feature, the how to contact International SOS by the phone if you need it, that type of stuff. Piper, would you mind?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, no, it's pretty user friendly. You download the app through Android or the Apple store. It's available. And after you download it to your cell phone that you plan to take with you to travel abroad with. So basically what you can do is you register, you create a profile, and when you open up the app, there's a check-in button, and that is a GPS, based, system where it locates where you are, and then you can sign up for alerts regarding your location. It keeps track of all sorts of things, the weather, sort of, if there's any sort of, storm coming through, you'll get an alert about that. Also, alerts about protests, and then so these happen on a frequent basis. And apart from that, there are two functions. There's two ways to connect to international SOS providers. So the chat feature is slow. I would say if you want to connect with a travel specialist or a medical specialist right away, go ahead and call them. And there's a little phone, icon that you just press, and it's a centralized number. It's a Philadelphia-based number that is then sort of dispatched to the closest, office abroad compared to where you are. So yeah, and this is a number that's available to you 24/7.
I just want to add one thing about the number. If you are in certain countries, if you click that call button, you might not be able to connect right away because it's an international number. And in those cases, the chat really is good. And I would also say that, a lot of the times you're going to be contacting ISOS, it might not be like a crisis, right? Like you have a sore throat, you want to find a clinic where you can get treatment and get reimbursed or have ISOS pay directly. That's a great time to use the chat function. But I would also recommend downloading like Skype or Google Phone or something like that if you need to call them. And you can also use us. So the Study Abroad staff, you will have our phone numbers on WhatsApp, and you can text us and say, hey, can you call ISOS for me? I need XYZ. We're happy to do that as well. So just to preface all that, they have call centers in several different countries, but not every country. So sometimes the chat is a good shout.
And also, right, one of the best features about this is you get insurance and everything is covered if you go through International SOS first. Yeah.
No, that's absolutely right. I think that's where the responsibility, if it's not an emergency, for the students to generate that call and go through ISOS. Yes, correct. Everything's covered. So thank you, Piper, Emma, Tammy, for
Yes,
that
thank you.
input. All right. Colin, you're up. Diversity, equity, and inclusion abroad.
All right, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Colin Mulrooney, he, him pronouns. I'm the Associate Director in the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and I'm happy to be here to kind of give you some tips and recommendations and things to consider as you're preparing to go abroad. So the first thing I really want to hit home at is that your identity and the intersections of your various identities are going to play a key role in how you're perceived and the interactions that you're going to have when you study abroad. I think what Jennifer said in the very beginning about having an open mind is very important because a lot of the concepts surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion that we hold in this country, particularly about appropriate ways to interact with different groups of people, are not true in various countries. And so with that in mind, I've very much encourage you guys to do your homework, to look into the culture and maybe some of the gender roles, the formality, the social structures of the host country that you're going to be staying at before you go. So you will kind of have an idea of what will be expected but also at the same time to keep that open and know, just like in America, not everybody ascribes to all of the cultural beliefs. And so really just keep your mind open. And this is a great opportunity for you to interact with groups of diverse backgrounds from yourself. And that's something I always say when we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, is that you really need to broaden your perspective. And so this is a great experience for you guys, for you all to work on your own concepts of diversity, equity, inclusion while you are abroad and apply them to our social structures back home. I also want to highlight as well that for some of you, this may be your first experience as a minority. Perhaps you possess a lot of identities that are in the majority. Well, when you're going to a country, or you may not be the ethnic majority, you may not be the whatever it may be, you're going to have a little bit of a shock when it comes to that. So make sure that you're prepared for that, that you know what that's going to feel like. Some of the things that may be asked about you and how your identity shows up may take you back. One thing I think is you're going to have the identity as being an American, which when I'm doing my identity activities here at Holy Cross, nobody ever comes up and says, you know, I identify as an American. It's usually like, oh, I identify as Irish and English, or, you know, whatever it may be. But for the purposes, when you're abroad, you're going to be a representation of American culture. And so people are going to place a lot of assumptions upon you based upon what their ideas of where America conceptually is. Additionally, I think it's really important that when you go and you have this shift of no longer being in the majority, that you acknowledge your positions of power and privilege that you have held previously. And this will be helpful when you're interacting with students and others as well. Kind of a fun example I like to highlight for, you know, when I was talking about, you may be asked some things that here are not politically correct or would be very offensive or would be considered a microaggression. That is not the same there. And so the first thing I would say is try not to assume the intent is going to be bad. Let's keep an open mind to that. But I've been watching a lot of a UK version of Love Island recently, and it sounds a little silly, but bear with me for a second. It's a really good depiction to show some of the ways that they navigate diversity, equity, inclusion differently. So the season that I'm watching, they refer to people of different backgrounds as mixed individuals. And what I'm hearing, what they commonly ask is, well, what's your heritage? Now, that's something that we would never ask here, because that question is the same thing of, well, where are you really from? But that's something that's probably going to be asked if you are a minority within America and you go abroad. And it's not necessarily a signal of disrespect or an aggression. It's just that difference in culture. So that's why it's really, really important that you guys do your homework before going abroad. People of minority backgrounds in America are going to have a very different experience studying abroad than others. There's a chance of being tokenized or being representations of your greater racial ethnic group. So like you may be asked, oh, what do all Latinx Hispanic folks in the US think about immigration policies? Or when did you immigrate to the US? And so these are things that you might face that you don't always see here. You also may be stereotyped based upon American media portrayals. So like, for example, if you are from an indigenous community, when you go abroad, there'll be expectations of your dress, your names, or your technological awareness based upon entirely old Western movies. So their conceptions of what it is to be an American. They also might expect you to be highly critical of the US. So again, if you're an indigenous person, they might expect you to have this hatred for the US because of how your people were treated. So just keep these things in mind as you're navigating your experience abroad. I will put some links in that I found some really good resource guides specifically for diversity, equity, inclusion, and each of the guides has subsections. So for example, they have one, if you're LGBTQIA student studying abroad, a person of color studying abroad, a first generation student studying abroad, etc., as you can see. But the last thing that I kind of just want you guys to be aware of is to really question before you go your identity. So how will your own personal identity shape your study abroad experience? How are your different intersecting identities perceived in this host country that you will be going to? Does this country have a history of tension towards your identity? What are the laws in this country regarding your identity? Is immigration currently a source of tension in the country? And how will you react if you encounter racism or other discriminatory behavior? And as somebody who comes from a law background, when we're talking about some of this research, I would also recommend to know where the nearest embassy is. That is, especially if you identify as a minority student and you're going abroad in a country that might not be as supportive of your various identities. Just, you never know what could happen. It's just a good idea to know where they are. Lastly, our office is here for you guys throughout this whole journey. Feel free to email us at officeofdiversity@holycross.edu. And we would be happy to answer, if there's an incident that you don't know how to respond to, you just want additional resources. Even if we're not the right people, we can help put you in that right spot. So I'm going to put some links in here. Thank you for having me. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to our office.
Thank you, Colin. Jackie.
On. Hi, so the Office of Study Abroad will be sending you 2 documents. One is the study abroad affidavit letter, which basically states that you're a full-time student at the college and you're participating in one of our study abroad programs, be it semester, academic year, or Maymester. It'll come on study abroad letterhead. Oops, that's not showing up very well. And the other document is the International SOS University Health Plan, which gives you the medical coverage amounts. And you may not need these documents, but we give them to you because you may at any time be required to have them on hand and to show somebody. So those will be sent to you either before you leave for your program, or you can pick them up at the office. I'm starting to get those ready now. So they'll be coming to you in the next couple of weeks or before you leave, or some of the later programs like the UK that have later start dates. Those I have to wait for certain documentation from the host institution. So those will be coming to you in a summer mailing. So I usually send those to the home address that you have on file in your online Holy Cross application. If there's any difference in that, you just need to email me so I know the right place to send your documentation to. I think that's it for the letters. So to going abroad, you need to also have your host institution acceptance letter. So those 3 documents you should always have with you. Have the originals or at least a color printout of your host institution document, and then the originals that we'll give you. Also very important is on your online application to have all of your documents, all of your requirements done by May 1st. And that includes a medical questionnaire. It's very important if you have any sort of accommodations that we know as soon as possible so that we can get those set up abroad. If you see any sort of specialist, be it mental health provider or medical specialist like an allergist, a nutritionist, a cardiologist, those specialists have to clear you to study abroad. And those documents are available on the portal on sa.holycross.edu in the navigation menu on the left-hand side under accepted students. If you scroll down there and then scroll down the menu that pulls up on the very bottom, it'll say specialist medical forms, and that's where you access the documents for medical specialist and licensed mental health provider. And those need to be turned in by May 1st as well, or the sooner the better. Those documents can be faxed to our office, and the fax number is on the forms. The other thing is any of the questionnaires or signature documents, once again, all have to be signed by May 1st, sooner the better. Otherwise, you'll be hearing from me. And then passports and visas, we do batch processing for Italian and Spanish visas. And we'll be getting those to you, of course, before the program starts. And in those cases, you won't be receiving right away the affidavit letter and the medical coverage letter, because those are part of the documentation that's required for visa applications. So you'll get those back with your visa when that happens. So anyways, just May 1st and as soon as possible to get everything in your online application done. Okay.
Great. Piper and Emma.
Yeah, I'm happy to start with pre-departure preparations. You could go to the next slide. Yeah, just a little bit more about medications. Continuity of care is really important to us. So please, when you're filling out the medical questionnaire that Jackie was just talking about, be completely open, transparent, and thorough. Communicate what your needs are, because before the semester ends or in the beginning of the summer, I work with students. Emma does the same thing. We work with you one-on-one individually through International SOS to find providers on the ground where you're going, whether that's a medical specialist or a mental health specialist. Especially in terms of a mental health specialist, you have the option of doing teletherapy that's packaged, included in International SOS. But especially if you're taking a controlled substance, you want to definitely let us know about that, because in some countries you need a psychiatrist on the ground to continue prescribing that medication. So again, I just encourage you to come to us with your needs. That also goes for accessibility services. If you just know in advance that the type of accessibility services that you receive here at Holy Cross, they may not be as comprehensive as they are abroad. But we will work with you to gather the right paperwork and documentation so we can help you and register you with the accessibility services at your host institution. So you can express all of this through this medical questionnaire that you fill out yourself. And also one thing about International SOS that I wanted to mention earlier was that if you don't have time to contact International SOS, you need to go to a walk-in clinic or the hospital, that's perfectly fine. Just, keep track of the receipts, take pictures of them, and then contact us, the directors here, and we can help you file a claim for reimbursement through Cigna. So we can help you with that process. And I'm seeing if anything else. Yeah, with prescriptions, like it's been mentioned before, just make sure that you have a doctor's note confirming that you take certain medications, especially again, when it comes to controlled substances. So,
I can take computers and cell phones and banking if you want. Do you have anything else to add before? I don't want to cut you.
No, that's good. No, I would just say the earlier the better, that we can at this pre-departure stage before the end of the semester or early in the summer. We don't, by the way, the Office of Study Abroad does not close during the summer. we're open year round. So we're not on the sort of faculty schedule. So
Yes, good to mention. Moving on to computers and cell phones abroad. Wi-Fi might not be what you are used to it being. I just zoomed in a couple of students from Argentina the other day. They had a really good attitude and kind of just said, you know, the Wi-Fi was cutting out. They said it's perfectly reasonable. It's awesome for our homework. It's just not lightning fast like we're used to. So we actually switched to a WhatsApp call, which was better connection. But that's just something to keep in mind. Just because the Wi-Fi is not as fast as you're used to it being, or because you can't FaceTime or Zoom or whatever it is, doesn't mean it's not sufficient for your needs as far as academics are concerned. And this goes for computers and cell phones. Just make sure that you bring converters for whatever country you're going to. The plugs are different. So that's the only other thing I'll say about computers, is just to make sure that you have a plug so you can charge up all of your tech. And then for cell phones, if you're going on a Maymester, I would say chat with your American provider and see if they have some sort of international plan that you can use. And if not, we do require you to download WhatsApp, which is Wi-Fi texting, and you can use that to keep in touch with parents, friends back home, our office, things like that. If you're going abroad for longer, definitely a local SIM card is usually the most cost-effective way. So if you're going to Ireland, Italy, Spain, it doesn't matter. Figure out what the local provider is, go into a store in person and say, hey, I'd like a SIM card. Do you have some sort of pay-as-you-go plan or a plan that might work for me? We'll go over this in more detail in the individual pre-departure meetings, but that's just something to keep on your radar, is what you're going to do for cell phones while you're abroad. I would just mention that sometimes if your cell phone is not unlocked, then you cannot use an international SIM card. So just check with your provider and make sure that your phone is good to go and ready to use abroad with a different SIM card. And then as far as banking is concerned, this is my soapbox. I think everyone should have multiple sources of money, but more importantly, a debit card and a credit card. Again, in individual pre-departure meetings, we can give you more specific information, but some rules of thumb would be to travel with some local currency. So if you're going to Europe, maybe order 200 euros. If you're going to England, order 200 pounds for your bank or whatever it is. A credit card is great to have for emergencies. Plus, you are all going to be bona fide world travelers. There are some great travel credit cards that you can have. They're good sources of sort of backup. And then I would suggest talking to your bank to make sure they know that you're going abroad and to see if they have any agreements with local banks. Oftentimes, big banks like Bank of America might have an agreement with a certain bank in Ireland where you can get cash at that ATM for not much money or for low fees. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then finally, just to have a plan in place for emergency cash with your family. If you need some extra money, just have a plan in place for that. We can go into specifics in individual meetings, but that is all I have. Piper, do you want to cover
Can I
packing?
just remind?
Yeah, you can jump in, Tammy.
Just a reminder that the credit card should be chip enabled, which I think they might be all chip enabled now. And most places when you go abroad, they require you to have a PIN along with the chip. You just don't.
A 4-digit PIN,
Yeah.
not a 6-digit PIN. That's actually critical. Thank you, Tammy, for reminding me.
Thank you.
Sure. When it comes to packing, it will really vary depending on where you're going. I think the most extensive packing lists that I've seen are for the School for Field Studies, where you need a flashlight, you need hiking boots and a rain jacket and all sorts of other things because you're outside all the time. So that's going to look dramatically different if you're going to the University College Dublin, right? Where you have stores, you have IKEA, you can get to very easily. So read about the climate, the weather, before you go, and think about really your essentials. So traditionally we say pack lightly. Definitely bring toiletries that you really like a lot, because you're not going to find the American brands or equivalents when you're abroad. So in terms of that, yeah, I would just say the most important thing is adapters, and Emma mentioned that. So another tip is people are thinking about bedding, and we'll go into this in program specific meetings, but mattress sizes tend to be different, especially in the British Isles. Not too dramatically different, but bedding packets are can be easily purchased through online campus stores. Like the University of Leicester has its own campus store online where you can buy a bedding packet before you leave and have it delivered to your room. There's also, like I mentioned, IKEA and outside of Dublin, you can get to. So I wouldn't have too much anxiety about bedding there. You can purchase it on site as well as like even in the Spires and Cork. So you can find out a lot of this information by going to the program specific website or host institution website accommodation page.
And if I could just add, the top regrets I've heard, packing regrets from study abroad students are, I took too many clothes and I took the wrong shoes. So I think shoes, while a fashion statement for many, I think you just need to think really carefully about your shoes, make sure they're comfortable. In most countries, there's a lot more walking that happens than what folks are accustomed to in the United States. So just keep that in mind. Less is more, and the right shoes will probably save you.
Absolutely. I'll just throw one last thing in, which is when you're packing, depending on where you're going, just think about navigating through trains, buses, taxis, whatever you have to do to get to where you're going by yourself. So whatever you're packing, you should be able to handle by yourself. That seems pretty obvious, but you would be surprised. People taking 2 50-pound bags and a carry-on or something, that very quickly becomes cumbersome on a train or something like that. So that's all I'll add.
Really good addition. Thank you. All right, it's halftime, actually 3/4 time Q&A. We're more than halfway. So now's the time to ask any questions. You can put them in the chat. Maymester students and faculty, you're free to leave. We'd love you to hang out with us a little longer if you'd like.
Please hang out for the Q&A, because there are Maymester people that asked questions.
Yeah, super.
Thank you.
Okay, so there are a couple of questions that came up. One is the student is going on a Maymester and a full and a fall program. Can they enter both countries on the ISOS app?
To my knowledge, you would put one at a time. So if you're going to the Rome Maymester, then you would designate Rome through the check-in button when you arrive, and then put in the second location when you begin your semester abroad.
Also important, Piper, if you can correct me or not, they should use the check-in feature whenever they're traveling out of their host country or city. Well, how is it?
Yeah, if for the non-Maymester students, yeah, absolutely. If you're attending a semester program or an academic year-long program, then if you're going to plan to spend some significant time, let's say 4 days or more in a different city that's not your host city, then you definitely want to use the check-in feature, just in the rare chance that we need to know where your location is and get in contact with you.
I agree with that, and we'll just confirm that. I think the more you can check in, the better. Even if it's a less than 4 days, it's helpful just so that folks know where you are. So if you need help. Agreed.
And just to be clear, we're not tracking anybody. It's
No.
just so that we
Yeah,
know your
no.
location, should there be any type of emergency. We
Right.
need to know your location.
Yeah, we're
Absolutely.
definitely, we're not watching you on a map all of the time. No.
Let's see, another one was to clarify if the student runs out of prescription medications abroad, are there any options at all to refill it?
I'll take that one. Generally, yes. You can get in touch with ISOS, who will put you in touch with a provider that can prescribe your medication, but you should check now. Let us know now what medication that you're on so that we can start the ball rolling on figuring out how to get what you need.
That's right. And as I mentioned earlier, ISOS has a really robust pre-departure portal and having those conversations, not just with us, but with ISOS in advance to make sure you can get what you need.
Okay. And then I want to mention just a couple of things. I'll answer these two. One was a question about for the Maymester, are there documents from a host institution? No, you just have the documents from our office, just the 2 documents. Also, primary care physicians do not need to fill out any of the medical specialist or mental health provider forms. Those are only if you see those specialist providers. Your primary care physician does not need to fill out those forms. Another question was, is it common to bring a PC abroad for academic year?
Yeah, in my experience, just advising in the British Isles, both Ireland and England, I would say PCs typically function better than Apple computers. But Emma, you could weigh in on that, but I recommend PCs.
Yeah, I don't know if they're referring to like PC versus Mac or
that
just like a desktop versus laptop, but
Or
whatever you have, it'll be fine. It will be. You can bring whatever computer you're comfortable with.
Okay, and then one more question, and it's regarding Maymester, and it may have to come from the registrar's office, I'm not sure, but the question is, do we need to do anything on our end for a Maymester to count as an area requirement, or will it automatically happen?
That's a good question. Yeah, go ahead, Piper.
For common area requirements, Tammy, maybe you know this, but I think Jared Chapman is the assistant registrar, and he's the one who processes these classes and would be able to designate them through STAR.
Most of them count for like one
Like
common
one
area. There are a
common
few that can count like as 2. So in that situation, yes, I would contact Jared to tell him which one they would want. One more international SOS, Piper. What about if the Maymester program moves from one city to another? Should all the students check in one city to another, or is it just country to country?
City to city.
City to city.
Okay, city to city. So that would be a yes. So. Okay, great. Because for the Holocaust program for Poland, they're
Right.
moving around. So they should check in. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Someone just asked who they should contact regarding medications. So it would be your person. So if you are going to Ireland, France, Spain, South America, you'll get in touch with me for the semester long and year long programs. Any other semester long or year long program is Piper, except Italy and Greece. You would go to Jennifer, also Germany.
Yeah.
And Tammy is our Maymester extraordinaire. Although I hope that people that are going on Maymesters can get a month of whatever they need and they should be fine.
Any other questions?
I think that's it. Someone asked about bedding and host families. That's provided. It may not be, 100 thread count or whatever it is, Egyptian cotton sheets. So feel free to purchase your own bedding, but that would be provided in a host family situation.
Yeah, and I want to just add one thing quickly to what Emma said. I think bedding is strangely a source of kind of frustration. Back to what I said in the beginning, bedding is different for everyone. Expectations are different. And so expect to either love it or not love it. And so, the expectation is that it's clean and well maintained, but it may not be to your liking. So that's a common comment I hear from students is, oh, the bedding was different than I expected. So to Emma's point, feel free to bring your own, or feel free to, we can help you connect with your homestay family ahead of time, to talk about bedding. That's also a possibility, and we can work with you one-on-one to make that happen.
Speaking of homestays, Jen, people are asking when they will know what their homestay is or what the address is or whatever the case may be. The answer is different for each site soon. And as soon as our office has that information, we will share it with you. We are not withholding anything.
Right.
So those of you who've had pre-departures with me already know I don't have your host families. I might not have those sorted until May, maybe June. It totally depends on the site and how it works. But you will have a host family. You will be able to connect with them before you leave. And they will be wonderful and awesome. And again, as soon as we have the information, we're going to share that out with you.
Okay, and somebody's asking, we have to upload flight itinerary for every flight or just the one to get to the host country and leave the host country? And what is the STEP registration? The STEP registration, I can answer that, is the US Department of State's Safe Traveler Enrollment Program. And it's basically, if there's an emergency in the country where you're at, the US Embassy there knows how to reach you. Which also goes hand in hand with International SOS, and they're aware of where you are.
My
So,
recommendation is that you register every flight. That's my personal recommendation. It aligns with my recommendation to register city by city, every city. So I think, again, we're not tracking you, but the more, if we know where you are, or if ISOS knows where you are, in the event that you do need help, you have it. So I think I would err on the side of more often than less. Any other questions?
there's another one on International SOS. Would ISOS cover the cost of prescription medication refills, or does that come out of pocket?
It's my understanding, Piper, deferring to you, that would be covered.
Yes, if it's refilled in I think so. We can double check, but if it's refilled in the foreign country, it's eligible for reimbursement.
Right.
And there's another one. If you're doing a semester program, can you room with someone who is doing the academic year and vice versa?
So that's completely site specific. Please reserve those questions for your person. So we've been through several times who your person is. You can send that question directly over to your person. Okay.
Unless, I'm not sure, it's not clear to me if they're talking about on campus or not. And if it is on campus and you know somebody who's studying abroad for the opposite semester, you want to room with somebody, if it all works out, you should contact housing.
Yeah.
And then there's a question about when do we have to start booking flights?
You should have all received a travel credit email, and you need to wait for your study abroad director to instruct you when you can book your flights.
Yeah, don't, even I have students very eager to purchase their flights because they can see the academic calendar of the host institution. It's up, it's already there, you can read it. The thing is that a lot of you don't know when the move-in date is, the move-out date is for your accommodations. Some of you may not even know where you're living yet. So please be patient and wait to hear from Emma, myself, and Jennifer about when to purchase those tickets.
That's it for the questions for now.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, everyone. So Maymester students and faculty, again, you're welcome to stay, or you can feel free to leave, and semester and year-long students, hang in there with us just a little bit longer. All right, we're going to discuss study abroad finances, and Tammy is going to lead this conversation.
Thank you, Jen. So this is for the semester and academic year students. So when you study abroad, you're going to get charged on your tuition bill. I'm kind of going out of order here, but I'm going to start with what you're going to get charged with.
No problem.
Which is your basic Holy Cross tuition is going to be on your bill. Your standard room fee is going to be on your bill. And then the part that varies is your board charge. That could be anything from no board charge at all if you're in self-catered accommodations to the standard full board charge if you're, say, in a host family that's feeding you 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. And we do have some instances where it might be half board, a quarter board, a 3/4 board. It just depends on your program and how many meals you get with that program. Most programs abroad, your accommodations are tied to whether or not you receive a meal plan. So that's helpful. The other thing that you're going to get charged is the mandatory $200 fee for international SOS, global security assistance, and international medical insurance. And as you can see, it is an absolutely fantastic plan. And it is quite subsidized, heavily subsidized by the college. It costs a lot more than $200 a semester. And those are really the only charges you're going to receive on your Holy Cross tuition bill. All of the, when you go abroad, all your, wherever you're studying, they're going to invoice the college, and the college is going to take care of paying that invoice on your behalf. What else? Okay. So along with that, you're going to get your travel credit, which is a good faith estimate of what airfare would be if traveling from Boston to your host institution. So we don't take an account if you're coming from California or Ohio or wherever, because if you were studying here at Holy Cross, you would still have that expense of getting to Holy Cross. So this is just a round trip estimate from Boston to your host institution. And it is a travel credit. We don't ask for your, a receipt of your flight. We don't reimburse it. It's actually just a credit that is placed on your tuition bill. The other thing that we provide is a student activity fee reimbursement. So all the students are able to submit receipts for joining a student activity or club abroad. Some of these things are in the past that I've submitted reimbursements for are golf lessons at St. Andrews, a flamenco dance class in Spain, joining a rugby club, resubmitting receipts for the Trinity Ball if you go to Trinity. So it's just helps to try to offset your costs to immerse yourself in some sort of cultural event or student activity at your host institution. What we don't cover is reimbursements for gym fees, and we don't cover travel. Refundable housing deposits are your responsibility. It's basically a security deposit. So if anything that's refundable would be your responsibility. If it's a enrollment deposit, like they're asking you for $600 to go to SFS. And as long as you attend SFS, that $600 gets put towards your tuition. That is something that we would pay for because it's not reimbursed. I think that's that slide, Jen.
Yeah, just one more
Yeah.
thing, Tammy, that we should mention is that financial aid absolutely travels with
Yes.
you. So whatever you are normally charged after your financial aid, your grants, all of that kicks in for your tuition is what you should see on your bill for your study
Yeah.
abroad semester.
I can talk a little bit more about that. Just if you are going to apply for loans, keep in mind that you can do your entire cost of attendance. So if you have no meal plan and you're going to be self-catered, but you need loans to pay for your food abroad, that should be included in your loan documents. And then what happens is once all your loans, financial aid, scholarships, all that is, applied, comes in and then applied to your account. If you are at a credit balance, you can ask the bursar's office for that money. And then you can use that to pay for your meal plan or what have you abroad, books, all that is cost of attendance. And I actually have a great document that is on our landing page on our website, the sa.holycross.edu. That's billing FAQ document is what it's called. And basically all these points are on there and it's a very helpful document. Oh, and we have our, so out-of-pocket expenses, going to be laundry, printing, obviously travel, if you are doing any of that. Could be airport transportation, could be local transportation, books, personal items such as bedding, sometimes cooking supplies. If you're in a shared kitchen, you might have to buy a pot or pan and a plate and a fork. All that type of stuff is out-of-pocket expenses. And withdrawal policies. So if you go abroad and you do not finish out the semester, there are consequences for that, financially and academically. So you really got to think hard about your choices. So basically, if you are abroad and you withdraw you decide you want to come home and you try to re-enroll in Holy Cross the same semester, and a lot of times that can't happen because it's already too late, classes have started and all that. But if that scenario were to happen, you would forfeit your flight credit. You would get charged not only Holy Cross tuition, room and board, but anything that we have paid on your behalf. So tuition to the school abroad, room and board for the school abroad, if we pay for an orientation for you, for cultural events for you, anything like that, you would also be charged for that. And in addition, there's no guarantee of you getting classes at Holy Cross. There's no guarantee of on-campus housing. And you may have to meet possible conditions to be re-enrolled. And if you withdraw from study abroad program and you take a leave of absence, you don't re-enroll in Holy Cross, but you take a leave of absence, you may or may not forfeit your flight credit. It depends on the situation. You're subject to the Holy Cross bursars refund policy, and that's on their website. Again, you might lose a whole semester worth of credits. Possible conditions may be required to re-enroll. And then also, if you withdraw from a program in either one of those scenarios, you would have to get approval to study abroad again in another semester. It's just not, you can't just apply and go abroad again. So you would definitely need approval. So.
Can I piggyback on that,
Yes,
Tammy?
you may.
Okay, I just want to kind of summarize all that by going back to the very beginning of this presentation where we talked a little bit about culture shock and adjusting when you're abroad. So all this to say, it's not uncommon in the first days and weeks of your experience to feel uncomfortable, to feel like things aren't going your way, things are not working the way that you thought they would. Maybe your preconceived notions of your experience aren't matching up to reality. That happens a lot. You think about going abroad, you dream about it, you're excited, you think you know, you envision what Dublin's going to be or what Italy's going to be, and the reality might be different. So this section is just to talk a little bit about consequences. So when you plan to study abroad, a lot of people are doing a lot of work and moving a lot of pieces to make sure that you have a great experience. We have on-site directors, we have university staff that work with us. A lot of people plan and expect for your presence wherever you're going. And we just want to make sure that you're aware that if you make a decision or if you're kind of feeling like you want to come home, there could be consequences. And it's a good idea to think those through, think about who you may be affecting and what may happen if you make that choice. And that's what we're here for. You have my WhatsApp number, you'll have Piper's number on WhatsApp, you'll have Jennifer's number. You can call us anytime, you can text us, and we can kind of go through some of what you're feeling in the first couple of weeks if you end up in this position. So that was my long-winded summary of that.
No, it was great. I wanted just to validate what Tammy and Emma said, and also just say the students, while it doesn't happen very often, when we do get requests for students who want to come home, it usually is at the beginning of the semester or in the first half of, the early part. And so to what Emma said, there will be a time of adjustment, and put that into your expectations. So thank you, Tammy and Emma, very much. All right, we're getting there. We're almost there, everybody. Academics abroad. And so this section will, I'd like Piper and Emma just to talk to you a little bit about the differences you'll probably expect and encounter abroad, and how that might be different from your Holy Cross experience.
I can run through CAFs really, really fast in like 30 seconds because we actually go through this information in the individual pre-departure sessions, as you may or may not know. But the main message is that when you're abroad, you need to tell the registrar's office what you want each class to count for. If you're taking a history class that you want to count as a cross-cultural class, you need to tell us. If you're taking a psych elective that you want to count as an upper level psych elective for your major, you need to tell us. How do you do that? It's through something called the course approval form, or the CAF form. So once you figure out your classes, which may not be until a couple weeks into your experience, you'll log into STAR, and for each and every class, fill out one of those forms and just indicate what you want each class to count towards. Common areas will stay within the registrar's office, and they will decide yay or nay, like this sounds good for a cross-cultural, this sounds good for a religion requirement, whatever it is. And then anything for your majors will be kind of farmed out to the individual departments for approval, but they'll take care of that. The registrar's office does that. You don't have to do that. However, if you get something rejected, if you have a question, let's say you want to take a history class and you want it to count for your history major. If that comes back unapproved, that's a Stephanie Yule problem. That's talking to the head of the history department. That's not going back and forth with the registrar's office. So I just want to kind of be transparent about who's doing the approving. So it's individual departments for majors and minors, and for common areas, it's the registrar's office. You will get an email about this when you're abroad to remind you. You won't forget. Jared Chapman will email you, and all will be well. This process works very smoothly. You just have to kind of stay on top of it a little bit. Piper, do you want to talk about academic differences and instruction and things like that?
Right. Oh, just to let you know, also registration. This can, depending on where you're going, this may be the very last thing you do. So you will have been accepted to a university, you know where your accommodations are. The registration period may be just before you leave the country, and that can be normal because in some places, a lot of places, things happen at a much slower pace as opposed to, you know, this rush to register way in advance. That's a very American model. And also be very mindful that at nearly every study abroad program, there's an add drop period at the host institution. So look at those dates, print them out. And if you do need to make adjustments to your selections, do it within that time frame and immediately submit another CAF form through STAR. So that way it can be approved by the registrar's office whenever you make an adjustment. In terms of instruction, I would say that expect to be way more independent. There's so much sort of continuous assessment, quizzes, papers, one-on-one interaction with faculty here on this small campus of Holy Cross. It's going to look radically different abroad, especially if you're, you know, say going to Ireland, the British Isles, where there's just going to be, your classroom sizes will be a lot bigger. You'll be expected to do a lot of the studying on your own. And so you have to be way more self-motivated, and classes don't meet as often as they do here per week. So you may, it's kind of, students at first think, oh, this is really easy. My class just only meets twice, you know, for 2 hours, you know, a week. And so, you know, I have all of this free time to myself. That's actually not free time. And that's time that your professors abroad are expecting you to use to study. And they do have office hours and sort of this idea of being able to approach the professor one-on-one is not as common abroad as it is here. So a lot of times there'll be intermediary people, PhD students, graduate students that will serve as tutors for these larger size classes. So those would be the people you would reach out to. If you're really struggling with a course, you can also reach out to myself, Emma, Jennifer. We can contact the study abroad offices abroad and try to arrange tutoring for you. We've done that in the past. So in general, I would just say approach it with flexibility and an open mind, and just know that even though you're going to feel like you're, you know, it's scary to think that maybe like practically all of your grade is going to be based on a final exam or a final paper that you don't produce until the very end of the semester. Just, you know that there's so many students have been very, very successful that come from Holy Cross to adapting to this new model of, you know, managing their own, creating their own timetable really for studying on their own. So I know it can be intimidating at first, but more often than not, people succeed very across the board very well.
Piper,
Also, one thing I wanted to say, read about the educational differences and systems in your host country. For all the programs I advise on in England, for example, I love this website. I'm going to share it with everybody. It's produced, here it is. It's from Study Abroad Arcadia, Programs by Country, England. I love this because it actually talks about how to take a British final exam versus an American final exam, how to write a British final paper versus an American one. So it's a long page, just scroll all the way down You'll find some really helpful tips. And there are more pages like this for other countries, but this is just one example that you can easily find on the internet if you do a little bit of research.
I
And
love
also,
that too, and it's great for Ireland. It kind of
yes, yeah, absolutely.
ticks both boxes.
Well, actually, the England one is more comprehensive than the Ireland one, so, but same style.
Yep. I just want to close out by dispelling one myth. This is going to be recorded. It's going to go out to everyone, and I want everyone to hear this. Study abroad is not pass fail. You are not taking your classes pass fail. You are taking your classes for real. You're going to get real grades on your transcript. Next to every class you take, you're going to see A, B, C, D, E. If you fail, you're going to see that F on your transcript, okay? All of your grades are going to show on your transcript. What is true is that your GPA will not be affected by your semester abroad. So those are two very distinct things, right? Your cumulative GPA will not be affected by your study abroad semester. Your GPA is frozen before you go abroad. You'll come back to Holy Cross with the same GPA that you had. But you still have some motivation not to get D's, E's, and F's, right? Because those will show on your transcript that you are sending to grad schools and to jobs and to grants and all sorts of good things. So the system is designed to be lenient, but also to encourage you to do your best. We understand that you're not used to being in England or Ireland or Italy or Spain, where you're taking all of your classes in Spanish, and that you might not perform as well as you do at Holy Cross, thus the frozen GPA. However, we really want you to attend class, to try to adapt to the local system, to read up on educational differences and do your very best. And that's why those grades are still going to show on your transcript. That's my piece.
Thank you, Piper and Emma. Did anyone have anything else to say on these 2 points? I think.
No, I think we're ready for some Q&A. Yeah.
All right. Any questions?
See, Tammy has been answering some financial questions. Let's see.
So there is a question about if my host institution offers scholarships. The answer is no. Don't apply to any specific host institution tuition scholarships. Holy Cross is going to pay your tuition directly. Your tuition bill will look the same as it always does.
There is one question saying, is doctor or professor still commonly used abroad, specifically at the British Isles?
Yes, definitely.
I don't know about you, Emma, but I see doctor more
Yeah,
than professor.
yes.
There's another question. If I don't like my host family, is it possible to change?
That's a great question. You should let us know if you're having issues with your host family. Get in touch with me, Piper, Jen, depending on where you're going. Most issues that people are having with their host families, believe it or not, can be resolved with some good old-fashioned communication. We really encourage you to stick it out, to have tough conversations, to lean into being uncomfortable, and to really try to get the most out of your experience. All of our host families are vetted. They've been doing this for many years. They love hosting American students. Our students have a great time with our host families. I think any issues that I've been made aware of recently with host families are pretty easily resolved. Just one note is that over communication is better than under communication. So if you're not going to be home for a meal, if you're studying and you're not coming home for lunch, just shoot your family a text. That one thing can solve so many problems. Just getting your host family's number, texting them, staying in touch, letting them know where you are. They worry about you. They feel responsibility for you. A lot of them treat you like their own family. So, but yes, in extreme cases, we can definitely work out a change.
All right, there's a question about spelling differences. For instance, in the UK, where the word color, C-O-L-O-R, is spelled there C-O-L-O-U-R. Does that have any
Yeah, you should
indication of
worry about that.
academic essays and work becoming problematic?
Yes, you should. When in Rome, when in the UK, spell like the Brits. When in Ireland, use Irish spelling. I think that's part of what we're doing is we're trying to immerse ourselves in the local culture, and part of that is spelling. I think you'll get used to it pretty quickly, but definitely try. I don't think you're going to fail a paper if you don't do that. But fun fact, Microsoft Word has a handy language tool, and you can change to Ireland or the UK and it will correct you when you spell color C-O-L-O-R.
Okay. There is another question. I'm going to Ireland. When will we find out about move-in and move-out dates? And will we be informed of when to book flights?
Yes, so I am sorting that out now. I will let you know as soon as I have that information. Many programs, you'll see that the calendars are not published yet. Specifically, I know people are waiting on dates for Trinity. I know people are waiting on dates for UCD. As soon as I have them, I'll give them to you. I love sharing information. I'm not withholding. I'm just waiting.
Another question about a student going to Ireland. Going abroad for the academic year, do I book my return flight when booking my flight there? And I'm not planning to go home in the winter, or do I wait for the second semester?
Yeah, that's a good question. I always recommend, actually as a general rule, a changeable flight. So you're not going to know what the final day of your final exam in the second semester is, but you can make an educated guess and book a round trip that's changeable and change it on the tail end, or you can just buy a one-way there and a one-way back.
That doesn't
up to you.
affect the Garda or anything, right? The
No,
student-
no.
Let's see. One student has not heard from their host institution yet that they've been officially accepted. Do I need to wait to do anything until I hear back from them?
Oh, regarding St. Andrews, so I've only had one person hear back from St. Andrews in terms of admissions out of a cohort of 12. So it's okay. Just give it a little bit more time.
And a question about, is the Melbourne travel stipend for a round trip ticket or a one-way ticket?
The travel credit is based on the estimate of a round trip ticket.
Someone asked how we should go about figuring out what our semester bill will look like. I would suggest not trying to figure that out and just waiting until the bill comes. And once you have your bill, you can then go and talk to the bursar's office, or you could talk to them in advance, but they are really the people, correct me if I'm wrong, Tammy, that can help you figure out exactly what to expect.
I mean, yes, I mean, I went over it. Basically, it's Holy Cross tuition, Holy Cross standard room fee, and then the board fee varies. You get charged the $200 international SOS fee, and your bill is going to be reduced by your airfare credit. I mean, those are the charges. So, but you should definitely check with the bursar's office. And another little, just FYI, the study abroad office does not have access to any students' tuition bills.
Yep.
All right.
Someone is asking if $1,000 a month sounds reasonable for food in Ireland. That
Well, it
sounds
says
like
excluding
overkill.
food.
Sorry.
It says excluding food.
Oh,
So
excluding
like
board.
$1,000 for spending money.
It says excluding board costs.
Right, so
Oh.
not including board.
Then yeah, $1,000 a month is an awful lot. You don't need that much money. It depends on your lifestyle, obviously, but in Ireland, you know, your housing is taken care of, your tuition's covered. You can plan to spend maybe €100 a week on food, maybe, depending on your lifestyle.
Right,
be
it's
a lot
definitely
less.
personal, right? If you're out
Yeah,
at expensive restaurants or out at bars or, you know,
Yeah.
traveling, it can get expensive, or you can do it very economically.
There's a question, Piper, about St. Andrews, about formal wear.
Right, about formal wears, are there uniforms? There are no uniforms at St. Andrews. During my site visit to St. Andrews, I would say that it doesn't really look that different from any other college campus in the US. So you can, you know, wear whatever you're comfortable wearing.
Let's see. Someone asked if traveling through an Arcadia program, are we required to fly on the specific dates listed? Or can we meet the program abroad for orientation?
Arcadia will be in contact with, is going to be hosting three pre-departure meetings along with mine. So you're going to have an abundance of information coming your way. They will talk about when to arrive and orientation, how to prepare accordingly. So just hang tight, that information will be coming. Formal wear. Formal dinner. There's another question about Melbourne. If there's a residential college that has a formal dinner, then yeah, you feel free to bring formal wear. There are like certain, like St. Andrews, Oxford, Melbourne, there are certain like balls that happen. So you feel free to bring, you know, attire that you think would be appropriate for sort of those more fancy things that you can either participate or not participate in. There's no expectation.
I got a question about semester startup at Trinity. That is a requirement. It's a mandatory program. So please try to plan your personal life around the semester startup. It's meant to give you a little introduction into Ireland and Irish culture. No one is exempt from getting that context before starting their year abroad.
And there's a
Someone
question
else asked about visas. Just want to say quickly, that's site specific. So your director will be reaching out.
Mhm. There's a question about what is recommended as far as getting cell phone service abroad.
Yeah, we cover that in individual meetings for each location, but I recommend wherever you're going, just get a local SIM card. So you can use google.com to figure that out, but you can also use us. So I know that in Ireland, it's Vodafone. In Spain, it's Vodafone or Orange. There are different networks that are really good. So plan to get a SIM card while you're away.
Jackie, we have time for just one or two more questions.
Okay. There is another one. Is there a way to reach out to other Holy Cross students going to the same program before the pre-departure meeting?
Right. So yeah, we're still, basically we'll be sending out, I know Emma has been hosting a lot of her pre-departure meetings, so you guys have been able to, those cohorts have been able to meet in person. Mine are coming up a little bit later in April, and at those meetings, you guys will be able to connect and meet each other.
And the same for Italy and Greece and Germany. Coming soon. One more, Jackie?
The only other question is about the travel stipend. It says I understand that the travel stipend is for round trip, but how does that work for academic year? Does it apply for returning home between semesters?
No. Quick answer, no.
Okay, I think we've got it.
All right. I want to thank everyone for hanging in there. We had a fantastic turnout. Thank you for your participation. Again, you will indefinitely have follow-up questions, and you can reach out to your respective directors with your questions about various programs. So thank you. And thank you to the staff for participating. I really appreciate all of you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night. For those
Good
of
night,
you that are
everybody.
still there.